We're going to learn about some worming techniques that people have forgotten about. You ready to run and gun? It's time for blast off. Let's go. Hey guys, Ty here with you. Welcome back to Bassin 101. The best worming techniques that people have forgotten about. Now, I've been meaning to do this for a while, and I keep forgetting. You know me, I'm empty-minded sometimes. But this is going to be a 4-part series on 4 different worming techniques that you can do with bait casters, but you can also do with spinning reels if you want to. And you can use a pegged slip sinker, or you can use just a slip sinker. These all involve Texas rigs. There are particular worm styles that are better than others for doing certain of these techniques, but it really just depends on it's up to you. It's what you want to throw, what you like to throw, whatever your favorite worm is. Today's topic is going to be streaking. Now, before you start saying anything, getting all goofy and all that kind of stuff, I ain't talking about running up and down the boat ramp butt naked. That ain't what I'm talking about. Streaking is a technique of basically, it's also called popping, it's called stroking. I've always heard it called streaking. But basically, once the worm hits the bottom, rather than working that worm back like you normally do, or dragging it back, or however you work it, you basically give it just a little bit of slack, and you want to pop your rod tip about a foot or two. Pop that slack, and that worm will jump. But it's not going to jump far. That's why you do it on slack line. If you keep your line tight, you're going to jerk your worm way too far. You want to keep it on slack line and pop the rod tip up. And basically it's just going to pop that slack, and that worm might move about that far. But it's going to move fast and then settle down. This is a pretty deadly technique. If they don't hit a regular Texas rig worm, you're better off doing this to kind of get their excitement. The thing about this technique, as pretty much as the rest of them, it's a short distance technique. In other words, you don't want to make, well really, if you're throwing a worm anyway, you're not really making, majority of the time, you're not making the furthest cast that you can make. Not all the time. If I'm throwing a slip sinker rig with this that's not pegged, then yeah, I'm covering water with it. So I work a worm normally. But with this technique, as far as the other 3, it's basically a short distance technique, because you're staying in control with that worm, because basically you're using techniques that give a lot of slack line, and you don't want your worm way out there if that bass hits. That's a lot of line you got to take up really quick. You know, these are like 30, 40, 50 foot casts, pitching around boat docks, pitching around cover, or just making short casts. When that worm hits the bottom, let it sit there for a second, slack line it. I mean, even give us a line if you want to, so that line lays flat in the water. That's basically what you want. You want this line to come off the rod tip and lay flat on the water. And you can just kind of pick up your rod and make sure you get the right amount of slack, and then pop it about a foot or two. That's all you're doing. You're not coming way back up here. Your bait's just going. That's all you're doing. You just reel just enough slack, and boy, watch that line. You got to be a line watcher with these techniques, especially this one, because as soon as you pop that thing up and you let it settle, you watch for that little in your line. Or if you think that you have a hit, reel down and put just a little bit of pressure on that worm. You'll know if he's there or not. So, be a line watcher. But this is a deadly technique if they don't take your usual Texas rigging kind of options. And the cool thing about a pegged sinker on this is that worm is in constant contact with that weight. If they don't hit it, or you miss a couple of them, you can always take the peg out and use a slip sinker. So that sinker will hit the bottom first, and that worm will kind of float behind it. And you pop it again, and it'll settle right behind that weight. Sometimes it's what it takes to make them hit. So you can try it both ways. I tend to like a pegged sinker with this deal, because then I can just turn around, throw the worm somewhere else, and do another technique if I need to. Or if I come across cover or some other kind of situation. That's just me. I'm more of a peg sinker kind of guy anyway. And I've showed y'all how I peg the sinkers. But this is a really good technique. You want a rod that's got some beef to it, because you got to be able to pop that slack, and that rod's going to load up quick with a lot of pressure. So you don't want a light action rod, or medium light action rod. You want a medium to a medium heavy. Okay, and if you've got a fast tip, that's even better, because that makes it even more sensitive. And you can pop that worm a lot better, and as that tip flexes, it'll pop that worm without you having to go way back up here. But again, short streaks that you do with this thing. It's a very effective way, but it's a technique that people have long forgotten. I was doing this in the 80s with 5.5 foot pistol grips. It worked. I mean, it really did work. I was really surprised. I don't remember where I saw it. I really don't. It might have been something, honestly, it might have been something I came up with, to be honest with you, because I don't remember reading it anywhere. But I just remember doing it when I was like 13, 14 years old, and just farting around with different techniques. So that's streaking, guys. Again, you ain't running butt naked up and down a boat ramp screaming yeehaw. Streaking is just another way of presenting a Texas rig that's completely different from anything they've ever seen. And if that bass comes in and watches that worm, all of a sudden it just goes really fast and settles about a foot or two away from him, he's going to snag it. So keep that in mind. You give it a shot next time you get your Texas rig and see if you like to go streaking. Y'all got dirty minds, I tell you what. So until next time, remember, new techniques are trendy, but bass never change. May the Father bless you and keep you in Yeshua's name, and as always, fish on.